Hello, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Samuel at 64, and welcome to the RoboCast. I'm joined alongside,
And it's 9132, the Robot Wars Guru.
and Steve is somewhere. I don't know where Steve is this week. He's busy doing something, but we are joined by a guest for the second Heat of Bugglebots 2019, or Series 2, or whatever you want to call it. Introduce yourself.
Hello, pals. My name's Craig, and I built a robot called Snappy.
Craig, at long last. It's been a good while we've been running this, and you've never been on it. It's bad considering you're a teammate.
Yeah, considering we've been building stuff together for over 2 years now, it's yeah.
That's bad.
Oh,
Yeah,
Jesus.
yeah, definitely it was. We first built it 2 years ago.
Bloody hell. Oh, yeah, because
Yeah.
it was just before I got married, wasn't it? Yeah, I remember now.
Yeah.
What a big sad boy.
He's so sad. But obviously, we're not here to discuss that. We're here to discuss Snappy. Oh, Steve is here. Hello, Steve.
Hey,
Hey!
I made it.
Unlike your own last week, Craig, you've been involved with Beatles for quite a while in the UK. Why stick with Snappy for so long?
I don't know at this point. No, I always had this idea of what I wanted to do with Snappy, and I think I said it in the interview. I mean, if it went right, this version was the version that I wanted to build from the start.
Mhm.
So it's all kind of been building to where it is now, I guess.
What particularly did you change from last season to this season? Because obviously last year things went very well. Obviously you finished top 4, which I think you were surprised by.
Yeah.
So what, like, obviously you've got a bit of a target on your back. What do you do to kind of improve a machine like that?
Well, I think the biggest glaring weakness was always the self-writing, the fact that it goes over and then it's kind of stuck on its back, which was a real problem in the K2 match.
Yes.
So main priority was basically fixing that and making it all a little bit smaller to compensate for the weight that I'd probably have to put in for a bigger, better servo. So it can lift a bit more, it can self-write, it's just as fast. I think some of the armor is a little bit thicker, and it's got alternate setups. Yeah, it was the dream going in. It was ready.
I think. Well, obviously we'll get on to what happened later on, but
Yeah.
by all accounts, it sounds like the machine itself was like it was the best it was going to be.
Yeah, I mean, I had some troubles kind of getting it ready, so it was kind of finished, I think, that week. I think because we had a live event the week before, and
We
I
did,
was just
yes.
fretting constantly, like, it's not ready. But yeah, it worked out, and I was happy with it. Yeah.
Happy Snappy. Happy Snappy. So I guess we'll move on to the episode itself. Things start with Splodeyboi and Phoneix. We'll start off with Phoneix. Obviously, the gentleman on the team, Ralph, was around last series with Angst, wasn't he? He had the axe bot, and this time bringing along Phoneix. Very nicely designed. Those big chunky wheels, look really good. The fact they didn't self-write shouldn't have normally been a problem, because obviously the weapon would normally self-write it, but on the 2 occasions where it mattered, the weapon wasn't working. Very nice machine, and probably a bit unlucky to have not won the Heat in the end. It was just one of those days, unfortunately for them. But what do you guys think of Phoneix?
Phoneix did incredibly at the UE event that we ran in February. Big up the Bristol bot builders boys.
Yes.
Phoneix was incredible. I think it got a podium finish, and it never had any of the problems it had in this heat, which I completely put down to the fact that Ralph brought over this handsome German fellow. But Phoneix is an amazing robot. It's a real shame that it kind of... Yeah, we'll get there.
We'll get there eventually. Anderson, Steve, anything to add to Phoneix?
It's very tasty. It being someone who's been to Germany recently, I just want to say it is a lovely place, lovely robot. There we go.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's a cool little guy. It's got a nice little spinny disc on the front, and it's got big chunky wheels on the sides, and it's pretty scary once that disc gets spun up to speed. That's really all I want to say.
It is fairly brutal. I mean, we saw some of the impacts that it did make throughout the heat, and it certainly has the power to chew some things up. That's for sure. They fought Splodyboi. Splodyboi, I said I knew of the people behind it. I didn't really know the machine itself, and I think took quite a few people by surprise. Obviously, we'll discuss how they did in the heat as well. But it's very unassuming. It doesn't look like. Not that it looks flimsy, but it doesn't look like it's going to be as like rigid as it is and like quite as tough as it is. And I think they deserve a lot of credit for extracting the most out of that machine.
I think Jeremy was just as surprised as anyone else at how Splodeyboi kind of, did. It was incredible, the fact that it was his first Beetle. It hasn't been in any fights, and it came out so strong. It's a real kind of feat of design, I think, for him.
Yeah. I think it's a testament as well. Like there was like not once throughout the heat did the weapon stop working either, which is normally an issue with spinners that tend to obviously give a lot of energy out, but they get a lot of energy put back into the whole system, and normally they break. And this one didn't. It just kept going and kept going and kept going, and I think that probably helped them towards eventually winning the heat. But we'll get to that a bit later.
Did have some short fights though.
It did have some short fights, but I'm sure they'll take it.
Yeah.
I will say, job done definitely. I will say about Splodyboi, I was a little nervous seeing all the exposed gearing on the outside with the drive.
It looks so nice.
Yeah, but I just worried about it getting hit. That was all. So as long as you keep that disc facing forward, that thing is a scary thing. So it's. I was really excited for this fight because I mean, two kinetic energy spinners hitting each other as hard as they possibly can. What more could you ask for?
Yeah, absolutely. We'll get to the fight itself then. In terms of the fight, was this the one where Phoneix got roofed? Or was that the heat final? I can't remember.
Heat final.
Was that the heat final?
That was heat final. Yeah.
So the power was obviously there from Splodeyboi. You know, they kind of alluded to in the after fight interview, Phoneix, that they had a undercutter setup which wasn't very efficient. I do wonder how it would have fared had they actually implemented it in the first place. With that said, I don't really think it would have mattered because I think Phoneix was struggling early on anyway, which is quite as you say, Craig, quite surprising. The fact that you said they were fairly bulletproof at UE last year, and just this time they just couldn't get it together. And Splodeyboi doing very well, has to be said.
I think it's a shame. I think the Phoneix had its forks on, and I don't think forks are really something you want to be going against an undercutter with. It's a really unfortunate draw for Ralph straight off the bat.
Yeah,
which was a sad time.
Yeah, it was a really short fight, and I mean, I think you would have expected that with the power of the spinners in both of these robots. It was just kind of a shame that we really didn't get to see Phoneix until much later in this episode. Really kind of show what it can do because it really got manhandled in this fight. I don't think Splodeyboi gave it a chance, and as soon as it flipped over and did the thing without the weapon spinning, that was going to be curtains, unfortunately.
Yes, Splodeyboi dealt out some really impressive hits. It's very nice.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. Anderson.
That's pretty much it. Yeah. It's probably these short fights is that it's difficult for everyone to say something that hasn't been said already.
Yeah.
But, it was good. Yeah. There you go.
See, this is why I do like the format of the show again, because it would have been such a shame just to see Phoneix go home after this point, but the fact that they get a chance to show them a bit more of the robot, then we obviously got to see that later on. But we'll move on. Let's talk Snappy and Gear Down for What, shall we?
Well.
Oh Jesus.
Obviously we just discussed Snappy a little bit more. So obviously you've completely redesigned the machine. What was the strategy going into the fight against Gear Down for What?
I don't think I had a strategy, to be honest with you. And looking back, there's a couple of things I wish I did do that I didn't do. But yeah, I think both me and Gareth just went in hoping it was going to be a great fight, and it turned out to be an amazing fight.
It was
fantastic.
It was fantastic. Like, I genuinely think certainly of this season so far, but like maybe even of all of Bugglebots, this is probably my favourite fight so far because it's just absolutely mental.
It was so manic the whole way through.
Not just Bugglebots. I think this is one of the best fights in robot combat I've seen in a long time. It was
cool.
both mental, yet controlled, yet exciting. It was just daft. I mean, how the hell? Okay, sorry, I just want to put just one point. How the hell did Gear Down for What not go in the pit? I'm sorry.
and yourself, to be fair, Craig, because like he had you.
It's over that one.
Yeah, I mean, he had you on the wedge as well at one point. I mean, I thought you were down, and then you just suddenly appeared on the other side of the pit, like somehow unscathed. It was just
both of us kind of skirting around the pit. There was one really dodgy moment where I was kind of upside down next to the pit, and having not had a robot that self-rights before, I wasn't quite sure how I was going to handle it. But
it did it in the end. It did self-right, which was the one thing that you really wanted to look at from the last series. So that it was good to see that actually it did work.
The improvement.
I guess you could say it was a snappy response. Thank you. I've been trying to that one for like 5 minutes.
Obviously, went to the judges. Did you feel at the time that you might have been able to swing it? Because it was a close fight. I mean, I think most people in the live stream, certainly, I think they all kind of thought that you'd swung that one because in terms of the fight itself, yes, Gear Down for What was flying around the arena doing all sorts of fun stuff. But I think that you were a lot more measured, and I think that's what people were kind of looking at and thinking, okay, so you're probably going to swing this, but wasn't to be. Did you think that you had it?
I think that naturally I was hoping that I had it, but it like genuinely both of us at the time were just like, this could go either way. I kind of had the control, I think, but he had those slams. He had me upside down so many times. I mean, yeah, he turned himself upside down a bunch of times as well. But it was so back and forwards that I don't think either of us could tell. It was all kind of a blur for us. So
yeah. I mean, it was a blur watching it, to be honest with you. There's just so much going on. I do want to discuss Gear Down for What itself for a quick second. Obviously, Gareth, the guy who built it, is quite renowned for his brushless. For those of you that haven't seen the Gear Down for What video that Joe did and posted on his team page, that you should go and watch that. I'll post a link below. I was crying. It was so funny.
The ultimate battle between brushless and brushed. That's how me and Gareth went in. Me and Gareth are such great friends, and Gear Down for What is such an incredible machine.
Yeah. Like
it's so immaculate and so kind of perfect in its design. Oh, I love it.
It's just mental. I mean, I think I can't remember which. I think it was Sub that mentioned. It's kind of got like feather and heavyweight style motors, like or grade motors on a Beetle weight.
The axe, according to him, has 120 mile an hour tip speed. What?
Oh.
Yeah, I'm not surprised.
It's insane.
It's Fight Force levels of daft. It's ridiculous.
There it is.
That's what a lack of gearing does for you.
Yeah.
No torque, but all speed.
Yeah. Gareth is a crazy guy. Well, I don't know.
I do want to say this about Gear Down for What. It's one of my favourite robots at the moment. I'm not going to deny it at all, because it's absolutely bonkers, and I love it.
It's fabulous.
It is absolutely mental. And, Craig, unfortunately, obviously, you do end up in the melee. We'll obviously discuss that a bit later, but obviously, one of those fights, as you say, it could go either way. And was it kind of a happy loss?
Yeah, I didn't mind losing this one. I'll be kind of honest. Like, obviously, I think I say in the later interview, I don't want to go 2-2, 0-2, sorry. But losing to Gareth is not after that sort of caliber of fight.
Yeah.
Not a problem at all. I was very happy to walk away from that with a loss. That was fine.
Fair enough. We'll move on then to our final opening fight, and good friend of ours, Craig, of course, Mr. Dave Lowry and Shark Setrakian. Shark Setrakian. First of all, as ever, amazing name.
Yes.
We expect nothing less. Such a fun machine. him and James obviously had a lot. Seemed like they're having a lot of fun, which is absolutely fantastic to see.
Mm-hmm.
And they get Drew against Wajoo, and then you just kind of think,
There goes that.
Wajoo. It was the fight itself was spectacular, like for all the right reasons. It was exactly how it should have been. There was no better way that fight could have gone in my mind.
Can we get? Bless him. No, it was.
Just seeing it explode across the arena in 1,000 pieces was just perfect.
Very satisfying.
Basically, everything that could have gone wrong for them went wrong.
Yeah, the little. I liked his idea of using the sort of like the pokey sticks to try and hook a duck his link out, which
because it could have worked.
Imagine that. Imagine the scenes just pulling out Wayho's link. Wasn't to be on this occasion, unfortunately, but yeah, I mean,
yeah,
it's just so much fun.
The arena floor in Wajoo had other ideas.
Yes, yes.
Well, I mean, Wajoo had battered fish for dinner that night.
Just a bit.
Really, bit of chum. We'll talk about Wajoo briefly.
Yeah.
First of all, a beautiful, machined robot. All one piece of metal. I think it's all one piece of metal on the top, and then the ring obviously is all one piece. Everything. It's kind of like this is very much two opposite ends of the idea of robot combat. You got the super serious, high engineered Wajoo, and then you've got Shark Setrakian, who's absolutely great fun, and is in the arena against this. It's a great mismatch of engineering. It's wonderful. It's just the best thing.
I think it's just how they want it. Like this is the whole idea that with Dave, he wants to show anybody can get into this.
Exactly.
And especially the 3-pound clash. Like this is so available to anybody who wants to get into robot combat. It's a small weight class. The parts aren't terribly expensive, and you can put something in the arena and make it look good, even if it goes up against a killer frisbee and explodes into 1,000 pieces.
Yes,
it was fun.
Craig, we're gonna fall out. It's coming. The Beetle is coming. You have my word. You have my word.
I know.
UE 2020. Trust me. It's gonna be wild. Back to the fight briefly. I say fight. It was great. it was great, and I as I said already, I really have nothing better to say other than this was just the way it was meant to be.
I believe the technical term for what Wajoo is machine porn.
Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, it's
and
so gorgeous.
The technical term for what the shark was buggered.
Well, yeah. I mean,
Also,
but to be fair, it was still working mechanically at the end of it.
Yeah,
it was.
All the electrics were fine. It's just that it wasn't all together anymore.
I'm thinking, and we'll get into it a little bit in a second, but in the melee, it was also still technically working, just couldn't go.
yeah, everyone was saying, oh, it's so broken. But it's like Dave, he took like an hour to fix it back up together, and it was fine. Everything electrically was fine. So, testament to his building, really.
Yeah,
definitely.
Absolutely, it just shows that no matter how much damage you take, you can always get it back in the arena with a bit of know-how and
bit of elbow grease and sticky tape.
Yeah. Well, we saw that later. I suppose we'll discuss the melee then. Obviously, Craig against Phoneix and Shark. What was the plan going into it? Obviously, Phoneix very very scary as you already mentioned. You kind of want to avoid it, and obviously Shark also a big threat in there. What was the plan?
I wanted to protect Shark above all else.
Shark must live.
Shark must live. So I was going for Phoneix, which was the plan, and I did go for it. It just turned out that he was spinning a bit fast by the time I got there.
just a touch.
Just a touch.
Just a little bit lower than you at the front.
Yeah. I'm not really sure what I could have done to combat that. I don't think my alternate fork setup would have really worked for.
That's the thing with wedgelets against a flat wedge. It seems to be the wedgelets win often, and unfortunately, as soon as he got underneath your wedge, it clipped you, and I think that at that point there was a spot that he could keep on hitting, and then the lipo, and then the
that
shark,
was
and
very unlucky. I mean,
yes,
obviously, I know you did. Obviously, we mentioned already you didn't want to go 0-2, and I think like to go out like that, like my heart was literally like on the floor because it's. I understand why it was called, and I get it because exactly. First of all, you don't want a minor bomb going off in the arena. That's not the idea.
The lipo was very close to a high KE spinner. Let's not have that.
Yeah, I mean, first of all, again, props for the editing team putting in that clip from a recent event.
Recent event.
Yes.
Props to Bristol Bot Builders again.
Bristol Bot Builders.
Big plug.
Absolutely, but it was good that they showed the footage of what can happen, and that's a very good testament as to why you were taken out of the fight. But obviously, going out that way is just my heart was on the floor. It's just no, it's not fair.
Yeah, it kind of sucked. So the first hit. I think it dislodged the lipo ever so slightly, and that's why the wedge didn't go all the way down. Nothing bent or anything. There's no damage on the wedge. It just dislodged the lipo enough to not let the lifter go all the way back down. And then the lipo came out, which is a weird thing because all the other Snappies I've ever built have always had the lipo either behind the wheels, so under a fixed piece of lid, or under another fixed piece of lid. This was the first one where it was under something that moved. So I've never had to think about it being strapped down before. until
this time, and then it fell out.
So I sort of didn't think about it until it was a bit late, which is a shame. But mad props to them for the way they handled all of that. It looked great on screen, and I think some of the newer viewers really appreciated it. Yeah, so that was cool.
Yeah,
I can imagine.
I think it's good that they actually, included as to why, it's all well and good saying, oh yeah, this, it could explode, but like actually showing this is what happens when a lipo gets hit. It kind of gives you a bit better of an idea. And then obviously with you out the way, Phoneix turned his attention to poor Shark Setrakian.
Can we just say though, driving sideways always going to be
spot on.
That was so
spot on. And the fact
it's fucking sideways. Oh, brilliant.
The fact that after the cease was called, where you had to be removed, and Dave was like, "Oh, do you know what? Let's go again. Why not?"
Right. Yeah. The fight's not over until it's over. You never know.
Didn't it get left on its side as well until called again? Yeah, I thought so.
Dave knows how to put on a show.
Absolutely. Yeah. I did drop him a line afterwards saying he was, the entertainment was clearly there from him, and I think it showed that they were having a good time, and I think that was really good for those guys. The fact that they turned up and they did enjoy themselves.
Yeah.
It's what it's all about at the end of the day, isn't it?
And he's bringing something new to UE 2020.
Excellent.
Oh.
Which I'm certainly looking forward to fighting.
If you get going in time, Sam.
We'll be there. Don't you worry. Don't you worry.
Yeah, I've booked the time off work now. Come on, man.
It does mean, Craig, that at this point you're now in the Dung Beetle, which obviously was your worst case scenario. And obviously, I know you mentioned that already, but like, what more could you have done realistically?
Yeah, I mean, it's all good looking back and saying, I wish I'd done this, I wish I'd done that, but you can't do that. You can't go back and change things. So it is what it is, and it just added to what is currently a really scary looking Dung Beetle lineup.
I know,
with Ogre Drive and Hold My Beer in there as well.
It's you look at the people in there, you kind of think, John, they'd be, fair, you wouldn't be surprised if that was like the 5-way rumble again, but.
Exactly, yeah. The standard of robot this year is massively improved compared to Series 1. So I think that shows it.
Yeah, absolutely.
I just want to say, Craig, it was very gracious of you to lose, so to give someone else a chance to win. Because obviously Snappy was going to win the series, but you decided to look up. It was very gracious. You've taken it very graciously. Fair play.
Yeah, that interview with Tim, massive props to Tim. I'm giving a lot of props this podcast, sorry.
No, by all means.
Massive props to Tim for taking that interview, because I was a little bit emotional. Thank you.
Yeah, it's you know, it's obviously frustrating, you know, when you've obviously worked so hard on something, you know, as you said, stressing to get it together in the first place, and then it just doesn't, just some tiny little things not working out, and
Well, the idea is that like every time something goes wrong with your robot, and I've heard this from many people, every time something goes wrong with your robot, that's a weakness leaving your robot, and now it's going to be better the next time because what happened wrong that time won't happen again because you know. So you know, hey.
But a massively well-deserved win for Ralph and Jonas. They're wonderful, wonderful guys.
I think they're glad they brought that instead of angst this time.
Absolutely. So to the second round then. Our first fight was Gear Down for What and Phoneix. Phoneix obviously just winning its Rumble to get through. Such a shame that we didn't get to see more Gear Down for What craziness. But I mean, fair play to Phoneix. They saw an opportunity, they took it, and the link just flew out, and that was pretty much it. Really, there wasn't much more to say.
Yeah, I was expecting more control this fight because he had to step down his voltage, I think, from 4 to 3 because one of his, I think in the previous fight a battery got screwed up or something like that. I think he explained it briefly in the episode, but this thing's just I don't know how people drive brushless at all. It's so fast, you know. It's crazy how much speed you can get out of something like that.
The only thing that I can compare it to, really, for me, is like watching Ant-Wait's drive. Like, it's kind of like that, but like obviously it's much bigger. Like, having driven an Ant, like it's not difficult to control, but like everything's just very sudden.
It's very twitchy.
Yeah, and like you know, with the Beetle and particularly heavies, I find it's quite a little bit more fluid. Like you can kind of plan ahead a little bit and kind of get into a groove. Whereas with Ants, it's just kind of like point and shoot. And I feel like this is very similar. Get Down for What has that kind of, everything's very sudden. It's not necessarily, I say fluid. It's more of a, you got to line it up and then let it go rather than just driving it normally as you would do.
And it has that control on all of Gareth's custom ESCs. It's all custom Gear Down for What. There's nothing purchased in there. Most of it is his PhD project, I think. So
he's a crazy guy, Gareth, isn't he? He just does some silly things with Beetle.
We're working on a very fast feather today together.
I can't wait. I can't wait for that feather.
It's going to be stupid.
So it's a shame for Gear Down for What to kind of go out like this. It's it gets to that point, obviously, particularly in this series, as you mentioned, Craig, the standard of robot's so high, like you're going to end up with someone hard in round 1 or round 2, really.
Yeah.
And for Gareth, this was this is it. Unfortunately, you just go into that 10-way rumble to get back in, but we'll have to see them later on. Phoneix going through to the heat final.
I can't wait to see that. I'm gonna just see it plowing through robots like debris, just flying across, hitting the box and stuff like that. It's gonna be good.
It reminds me of the video of the truck with the plow on the front going through the cars. That's what I'm imagining Gear Down for What's gonna be like in it. We'll see. But the next fight was Splodeyboi and Wajoo. Once again, hands up if you thought Splodeyboi was gonna win this, and if you've got your hand up, you're lying. Because, again, this is as much as Splodeyboi has the undercutter, and yes, it could probably get under and chop a few wheels off here and there. You kind of think, okay, Wajoo's got the protective spinning ring, and those wheels on Splodeyboi are right there.
Yeah.
And you just kind of thought this is going to get knocked off, and that's going to be all she wrote, but no. And Wajoo, in the end, smoking up its motor and just dying in the middle of the floor.
Yeah.
I thought Tim was going to have the wheels. Yeah. Really thought Tim was going to have those.
I'm very surprised. It's very again, credit to Jeremy. It was very well driven, Splodeyboi, and he kept that weapon pointed at Wajoo the whole time. It wasn't as if it was fluke that it kept happening. He was pointing that weapon constantly at Wajoo.
He's a great driver. Yeah,
and he did a really good job. And he just he kept the pressure on Wajoo, and eventually that paid off when the motor seized up, and that was all. That was it, really. That's all they needed.
It was a driving affair, definitely, and Splodyboi showed that it's not just all punch. It's got a lot of good control behind it, and I think that's a good quality to have in a spinner. It's not all just crazy KE, and it's got a lot going for it. I like the pompousness of, oh, we're the favorites now. We got a good shot coming up here. Oh, this, and I mean, it's very, it's just a very good machine. I think I think coming into this heat, I think it was very unassuming. You figure, oh, it's a good spinner, but it's got exposed wheels. I'm sure something will go wrong. Who knows, but it's a very competent machine. I think going forward, it's going to be a tough one to beat.
You've got to rate its chances at this point after those convincing wins so far.
Yeah.
We haven't even got to the heat final yet.
Yeah, I know.
Right.
Like, the fact is, again, as Steve, you rightly said, it's quite unassuming, but
Yes.
they've clearly maximised the potential of the machine. Like, yes, they've had a bit of good fortune with Phoneix getting stuck and Wajoo seizing up, but they forced that. It wasn't as if they just
Yes.
broke down on their own accord.
Oh, yeah,
it was a result of Splodyboi's pressure that caused that to happen.
Yeah, that big chonky disc on the front does some serious damage.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
It's a tasty looking disc.
It's nice.
Mhm.
It's bright yellow as well. You see it coming. You see it coming. Anderson, anything more to add to Splodeyboi and Wajoo?
No.
Good to know. Good to know. I do think it is a bit of a shame that for Wajoo that we might not see it running at full tilt in the Rumble, which is because I think he did mention he didn't have a spare and the motor was cooked. So unless he can find a spare, hopefully he will do. But it'll be a big shame not to see it running at full tilt again. Maybe next time.
Yeah, well, maybe next time, and we'll see some more CNC porn next time. So hopefully, hopefully things improve. Because it's a pretty looking robot. I'd like to see how it gets on in the future.
Yeah.
You can all just go and watch the videos of it at the Euros when it comes second and dominates everything. Just watch that instead.
Absolutely. And Heat Final is a rematch from round 1. Our first fight is also the last fight of the episode. It's Splodeyboi and Phoneix again, and it pretty much goes the same way, really. I mean, Phoneix did a little bit better this time, but they just didn't really get going, and it just again a testament to Splodyboi's driving and just general doggedness. Really, it was really, really strong, and this time Phoneix got roofed, which was
Yes.
amazing.
It roofed
So
itself.
cool.
Yeah, considering it was against a horizontal, it's quite impressive. But
Yeah.
yeah,
Shows how much power is in Phoneix. If it got a good bite on something,
Mhm.
it can really throw stuff.
yeah.
It's kind of a shame it didn't get to show that, but Splodyboi just dominated that heat.
Yeah. And I did like Rare's little trinket thing, taking a piece of every robot that they'd beaten.
hmm And that happens over here too, where people trade pieces of robots that break off, and we sign them and trade them, and it's like a rite of passage. Like, here, this is you beat me, so here you go. I have an old case of a robot that I fought over in Orlando, and it's just nice to look back and say, hey, look what I did.
Absolutely. In terms of the fight again, it was fairly short, but once again, we've gushed a lot about Splodyboi's driving in this heat, and it's just the way that they went about it. As they said, they very quietly just played their way in, and I think sometimes that's all you need. They're very unassuming, and they just did the job they needed to do and progressed to a very solid grand final, which is, I think, not many people kind of had Splodeyboi down to win the heat. I think that's fair to say, but they did a great job, and fair play to them.
I don't know. All my money was on Shark. Come on.
Splodyboi's got to be a dark horse going into that final now, though.
Definitely.
It kind of reminds me of Rev 2 last year. Like they kind of didn't yes they did, they started okay, but they gradually grew as the heat went on, and I think as I said, they've definitely played their way into a solid position.
They've done very
Reminds
well.
me a lot of Bigger Brother in Series 5 as well. Came back, unseeded, dominated the heat.
Yeah.
Could hopefully see a reoccurrence of that later on as well.
It's got a very Series 9 Supernova look to it in a way.
Yes, with
where it's got a big old disc and the wheels in the back. It's a little shorter, sure, but it's. I I really hope we can see a good connection with that disc. The teeth are a little small, so it's not going to get really big bites. But when it hits things, obviously we saw in this heat, it's a good one.
Yeah, it's got more than enough potency behind it.
It also reminds me, I don't know, I think, don't quote me on this because I'm crap with names, but I think it's Jameson Go, and I think he's got a 3-pounder, which actually was inducted into the
Silent Spring. Yes.
Yeah.
That's what Silent Spring. That was it. Yeah, it reminds me a lot like that as well. You know,
Yeah,
because that's
definitely.
I'm thinking an undercutter.
Mm-hmm.
At
That
least
thing's
I'm
got all
in.
kinds of different weapons. He could just swap out weapons whatever he wants. He could have a spinner. He could have a vertical. That thing is a whole different animal.
Yeah,
there we go.
it's kind of crazy, that thing is.
Yeah. Anyway.
Yeah.
So I'm myself. Wonderful. Back on project there, boys. Lovely to see.
There was talk of Silent Spring coming over for Bugglebots 2 at one point, and everyone was quaking a little bit.
Just
I was, at least.
a river of brown flowing out of Bristol.
Yeah. Surely you shouldn't be allowed in if you're too good. I'm sorry.
You're banned for being too good.
Yeah.
Well,
Well, it happened with Blendo back in 1995. So there you go. Yeah.
I guess so. Obviously, Craig, wasn't the heat you kind of expected, but obviously we will see you again later in the year with the Dung Beetle melee.
I will bring the black and green disappointment machine back.
But obviously, before we wrap up, is there anything else you wanted to bring up before then, or?
No. I mean, I've plugged BBB enough.
No, they need more plugs. BBB, go and
Come
support
to
their
our-
events.
We do our best. Also, come and see the two-headed death flamingo. I don't know if you've heard of it, Sam Elliott 64.
I built it. I built the whole thing. Remember? For context, there was a child at an event that just said I built it, which is so strange.
It was great.
This random child just comes up and goes, "Oh yeah, that was built by you," and I'm like, "Okay." Surreal. But yes, go and support the Bristol Bot Builders events. They are great fun, and I highly recommend them anyway.
And Snappy will be back eventually after a prolonged rest.
Yeah, you know, sometimes he needs a holiday. You know, he's a hard worker.
He does his best.
He does his best. As do you.
Bless you.
With that said, that pretty much wraps up the second heat. Obviously, there's the small matter of Christmas next week, so don't expect a Heat 3 podcast until at least probably Saturday or Sunday.
Yeah.
Don't know when it'll be, but we'll figure out eventually. I'm sure it'll be fine. But until then, I've been Sam at 64.
I've been Anderson with DT the Rules Guru.
I've been Steve the American Killjoy, and I showed up late.
Oh,
As usual.
I've been Craig. Thank you for having me.
Anytime. It's been an absolute pleasure. Thank you for coming. The three of us will see you at some point next week. I don't know when it'll be, but we will do. Yeah. See you later, guys.
Bye.